Good morning, guys. We're live from my kitchen because why not? Why not? Let's go live from my kitchen. Because there's something that I wanted to talk to you guys about because it's something that I hear a lot when I speak to singers, who want to talk to me about what's going on in their singing and their music. And one of the things that we talk so much about is the inner critic. And so I wanted to come on live here today and talk to you and find out how you're experiencing your inner critic. We all have one. I think it's just part of the human experience. But some of us deal better with our inner critic than others. And I think for performers, the inner critic can be really, really mean. I mean, because we're putting ourselves out there. And so, if you feel like your inner critic is hijacking your performances, hijacking your recordings, if you feel like you're just always in your head with what isn't good enough, what doesn't sound right, what sucked, all the things that the inner critic wants to put in there, it can do a number on you in a lot of different ways. And I think that as performers, when we're putting ourselves out there often, whether it's on stage in front of an audience, whether it's in an audition, whatever the circumstance, the inner critic wants to get all up in there and judge you before everybody else that you think is going to judge you, like the people in the audience or the people in the audition. So inner critic is that voice in your head that is there to protect you, believe it or not. I mean, that's what your inner critic thinks that its job is. Did you know that? Like, we all, I think, have a very love-hate relationship with the voices inside our heads. Some of us have inner critics and voices in our head that are really mean to us, that are say things to us that we would never say to somebody else, and yet the reason why the inner critic is there is because it thinks it needs to protect you. Because if it can, it's almost like you can motivate with a carrot or you can motivate with a stick, right? And so inner critic thinks that if it just beats you up enough and it just flatulates you enough with what you're not good at, what isn't right, what you suck at, all the things that it's going to point out and be super critical about, it thinks that if it does that enough, that you'll be motivated to do something about it. So just know, first of all, that if you recognize that you're in your head a lot and the inner critic is very loud, first of all, you can just have some compassion for yourself and know that it's trying to protect you. It's just doing so in a way that actually creates more problems than it solves. So when the inner critic is running the show, let's talk about how that actually affects your body and your instrument. So think about this. If somebody is yelling at you and being really judgy and really judgmental and saying things that are really harsh and really unkind, how does that affect your physiology? Like, how does that affect your body? Think about it for a second. I think for most of us, it makes us contract. It makes us want to hide. For some of us, it might make us want to fight. It might make us want to, hit back, right? Either way, the thoughts that the inner critic are putting in your head have a reaction in your physical body, because that's just part of being human, right? The things that we think and feel, we get taken into our body. We physicalize our thoughts and our feelings. And so when your inner critic, let's say you're going to go do a show and your inner critic is like, nobody's going to want to come see this. Why would anybody want to come to see your show? Or nobody's going to show up because nobody knows who you are. Or you're going to get up there and you're going to totally bomb the high note and you're going to embarrass yourself. Don't do that. Like all of these things that your inner critic, all the anxiety the inner critic is putting in there. Now your body, otherwise you'd be like excited for this show. And now your body's like, oh man, crap, this is something to be scared of. This is something to worry about. This is something to try to control because I don't want to go out there and I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to lose the audition. I don't want to, basically one of two things. I don't want to lose what I have, or I don't want to not get what I want, right? That's what the inner critic thinks it's there to protect you from, losing what you have or not getting what you want. But now, as a singer, your body is your instrument. Not just this, right? If you watch my content, you know that. Your whole body is your instrument. Now your whole body is in fight or flight. Massive fight or flight, okay? And what happens is that all of the technique that you otherwise know, all of the access to your energy and to your truth and to your authenticity, both physically and emotionally, is you are cut off from, because your body is literally physically contracting because it does not want to fail. You are in fight or flight. You are either going to flee, right? Oh, I'm gonna play small, and I'm gonna, I'm not gonna go for it, and I'm just gonna hope that nobody notices, and I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna put myself out there, but I'm not gonna fully step in because I'm scared of what will happen, because inner critic is convincing me that I'm not good enough, or that, all the things. Or I'm gonna want to fight, and I'm gonna show up, and I'm gonna, make, force, control, manipulate, because darn it, I don't want any of these bad things to happen that the inner critic is telling me about, right? So either way, you've now created a situation in your physiology that is going to sabotage what you need to do in your support, in your energy, because you're going to abandon, and this is what happens over and over again. I see it with 20 years of coaching singers. You're going to abandon the technique that you otherwise know. You stop trusting your body. You stop trusting your instrument. And either you flee, meaning you take your foot off the gas of all that, or you fight, which means now you're pushing and you're overdoing and you're forcing. But both of these have the negative consequence of actually creating the bad sound, the bad performance, what you judge as less than, the note cracking, you losing your support, you disconnecting, you not getting the outcomes that you want, not getting the role, the recording doesn't land, all these things. Your body has now created a situation that is ensuring all of that to happen. And now you think your inner critic is right. Oh my God, I'm not good enough. They did hate it. I did suck. The high note wasn't good. I did lose my breath. Da 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 da. And when you think your inner critic is right, you keep listening to it and staying in this negative feedback loop. And it really affects your singing career, because over time it stops you from putting yourself out there for the things that would move the needle. It stops you from investing time, energy, and money in what you would need to do to be able to get there, because why would you do that? Inner critic is right. You do suck. You're not ready. Right? And so this spin in the mind, this being in your head, and this inner critic that just won't shut up, it's literally sabotaging you on stage and off. And so that's why it is so critical to learn how to understand it as a performer, learn how to understand what it's saying to you, when it's talking to you, and also how to reframe it and be able to align with something other than that. And so if you don't learn these skills in the form of like high level mindset practice, then you will forever be run by your inner critic that's going to be sabotaging your body and your performances and your best sound and your career in all the ways that we're talking about. So if you're training your body, right? If you're training your instrument without training your mind, it is always going to feel like a crapshoot. You will be at the mercy of whatever the external circumstances going on are that's triggering the inner critic, or maybe not triggering the inner critic, right? You're just at that mercy. And you will always feel like it's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, because you have zero ability to manage what's going on up here so that you get the best outcome down here in your body, no matter what's going on externally. So and unfortunately, traditional training does not address this. Most of you watching, you've had traditional training. You understand what that is. It's training from the neck down. It doesn't train your whole instrument, because traditional training forgets to include your mind. You guys, I have some of the best training in the world and some of the best technique in the world. And not a single one of the fancy conservatories that I went to and the fancy, coaches in Los Angeles and New York that I coached with, not a single one addressed what was going on up here that was affecting everything down here, right? They would just point out, oh, well, you're still not on your breath. You're still grabbing. You're still in tension. And I'm like, I know. It's not like I'm not listening to what you're telling me technically. I get it intellectually. And in performance, in the moment that counts, my inner critic would swoop in and completely run the show and hijack those performances, hijack those auditions, because my mind wasn't being trained. I had literally no tools for that, right? And so when you don't address a singer's mind as part of her whole instrument, you leave out the one part of the body that can and will sabotage everything else. It's like if NASA erected a rocket equipped with all kinds of kick-ass technology, all your technique, right? But didn't put any fuel in it. Is that rocket gonna fly? Or not only didn't put any fuel in it, put you need high quality, unleaded fuel, and you're putting in Kool-Aid. Right? That's what it's like, aligning with inner critic, right? And that rocket is not going to fly, right? How is that rocket going to fly if it literally has either no fuel or freaking Kool-Aid in it? And yet, that's how singers are traditionally trained. And if your inner critic is still running the show, you are not able to fuel that rocket with anything good. You are just an empty shell with a lot of kick-ass technology, and that's it. So I'm wondering, if you're watching this, do you relate right now? How many of you feel like your mind, your inner critic, is hijacking your singing, your performances, your auditions in some way? I would love it if you would type into the chat, because this is, if you know me, this is what I will geek out on. I will respond to you in the chat and we can have a nice conversation about what's going on, how many of you can make an amazing sound and totally nail that hard piece exactly the way you want it when you are by yourself in the shower or in your bedroom? I see Amanda's on. Hi, Amanda. I know you know what I'm talking about. You're great in the shower. You can do it when nobody's watching. But the moment it counts, the moment someone else is listening, that inner critic, and you start getting in your head and it goes nuts, and then either you choke and it's totally not what you want, or you do the performance, you do the thing, but you just know it's not as good as what was happening, yesterday or in the morning when you were on your own. So, you guys, I can't tell you how many singers, this is the experience. So if you relate, tell me, because I want to know so we can start doing something about it, right? And so, your inner critic in either of those situations, if you totally choke, or maybe you don't completely choke, but it doesn't sound as good, or feel as good as when you're by yourself, then your inner critic swoops in, and what does it do? It's gonna totally beat you up. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. Why did you do, all of these things. And so it's hijacking you beforehand, because it's convincing you that you're not good enough, you're not ready, you're not all those things. And then you've created that bad performance because of aligning with the inner critic. And now the inner critic's going to come in after the performance and beat you up even more. Who do you think you are to be able to do this? Why do you think you're good enough to do this? Everybody else, it's so competitive. Nobody makes it. You're not ever going to make it. All the junk. I call it the mind trash, the stinking thinking. And so it's a really sucky place to be. And it creates even more anxiety that compounds itself and creates this negative feedback loop of fear we were just talking about. You can't rely on what's going to come out because of this negative feedback loop. And so you hedge, or you push, or you manipulate, or you force, or you hold as a reaction to that, which then creates the sound that you were fearing in the first place, or the performance that you were embarrassed of in the first place, the note that you didn't hit that you were worried about in the first place, which then lights up your inner critic, gets even louder, even more, which then creates an even stronger reaction to try to push, force, manipulate, control, so that you don't have to experience that inner critic anymore. Finally, this time you'll get it. But the thing is, with all of that force, manipulate, control, all of that stuff, it just causes even more bad results and even more negative reaction. And then it just reinforces that loop even more. And it's, you guys, it's really hard spiral to be in. But this is what happens when singers don't know and haven't trained this, okay? And it makes also taking the kind of inspired and calculated risks that you need to in your career if you're going to succeed really, really hard. Really, really hard. But imagine knowing that every time you open your mouth, you're going to get your best sound because you've broken that negative feedback loop. You understand how to engage with your mind and your inner critic so that it serves you instead of sabotages you. And then all of that stress, that effort, that anxiety, that fear is just eliminated. And I'm telling you guys, like I can see Amanda in the chat, like relating. Like, Amanda, this is not some fantasy. For those of you who are watching, this is not a fantasy. This is 100% available to you. Once you know how to get your mind working for you instead of against you, continuing to line with that inner critic. And so the new way of working, it incorporates things like mindful integration. It incorporates things like catalyzing your energy. It, incorporates things like radical self-care to learn how to train the brain and harness all that power of thought to optimize your whole instrument and expand your artistry and your career and your voice that way. Because when you do that, you will have learned how to disengage from the inner critic, and you'll sing in a way that delivers auditions, performances, recordings that get noticed, that get you to that next level every single time. Because you will finally have learned how to get out of your own way. And so this is why I do the work that I do, guys. This is why I'm out here screaming from the from the rooftops about things like the inner critic, things like, perfectionism, other things that you hear me talk about. Because if you're left to the old way of training, none of those things get addressed. And then talented singers who are like you will quit because they don't have the tools or the training that address the real problem. You guys, your body cannot do what your brain is sabotaging. And you will not act on your own behalf in your career if it's sabotaging that as well. And so this is why I say that the way that singers are currently trained is really broken, because understanding technique means absolutely nothing if your brain is sabotaging your body's ability to use it fully in the moment that counts. And so we do a great disservice to singers by not showing them how to train the entire instrument, mind and body. And in doing so, we as the world, we lose out on a ton of great talents. So don't let that be you. You have too much passion, too much talent, too much artistry to end up being a casualty of this broken system. So if you've related to this today, if you're listening to this and you're ready to step into that highest, best version of yourself as a singer, as a performer, so that you can achieve that level of success in your singing that you know you're capable of, then I want you to get on my call calendar. Book a call with me. Do not mess around with your future. Do not mess around with what you really want in this life. Get on my calendar. Okay, so this call is for singers who have already had training, but literally have no clue how to optimize it to break through to that next level because they're so stuck in all of these things like inner critic, but who really want to understand the strategy to be able to break through those things and do that right now. Because you guys, in 2 months, you could literally be singing with an entirely new reality and a whole new threshold of what you're capable of, a whole new threshold of your confidence, and a whole new relationship that serves you between what's going on up here and what's going on down here. So guys, this call is not for singers who are just starting off on their journey. This call is not for singers who are new singers, who have never had any vocal training, who are not out there, yet performing, auditioning, recording. If that's you, there are some very basic tools that I guarantee you would give you some very good foundation to draw upon. So go get that first. But if you have that, and you have had that, basic training, you've worked with teachers, you're out there hustling, auditioning, performing, recording, and you recognize yourself in what I've been talking about, and you're in your head and you're not seeing the results that you want in your career. You go to auditions, but you can't get a call back, Or maybe you're not even auditioning because the inner critic is like, at this point, I've had so much rejection. And your inner critic is like, well, why keep trying, right? Like, these are the things. So if you are serious and you are in the game and you are not getting the results that you want, book a call with me. It is every single day that you are out there not living your gifts is a day that you are losing money, because studies have shown that people who do what they love make more money. You are losing money, but most importantly, you are losing that part of yourself that is the highest part of yourself, that is the part of yourself that is your truth. When you have to go to some other job, when you have to go to, some other situation every day because all of these things have been stopping you from living your gifts, living your talent, and doing it in a really sustainable way. So if you've been putting yourself out there to perform, audition, record, and you're not seeing the results that you want at the level of the career you want, don't overthink it. Get on my call calendar. We're going to get on the phone and we're going to get real good clarity on what's been going on up here. The mindset that you have currently around your singing, how it's affecting your technique and the actions that you're taking. Plus, I also know that you might want my help to transform your singing in your career. And so if you do, we can also discuss that and see if it's a fit for both of us. And if it is, I'll show you what that looks like. And if it's not, that's totally fine too, okay? But the bottom line is, do not waste another year in your head, not able to get the results that you want. We're going into 2024. Book your call with me. Let me help you to get really clear on the strategy that you need to do to be able to shift everything for 2024. And if you want my help to implement it, we can talk about it. And if you don't, that's okay too. So I'm putting the link to get on my call calendar in the chat right now. Okay. Use it. I'm putting link to book a call. Okay, here we go. This is why, you guys, this is why I do this, because I do not want any more of you suffering from what you don't know that you don't know, which is why I'm in my kitchen and I haven't even done my hair today yet to talk to you about it. All right, everybody. Mwah, mwah. I will see you the next time I decide to get on my soapbox and go live. So I hope that you really take to heart the things that we've talked about today, and get on my call calendar if you want some help. All right, everybody, sending love. Bye.